I just had my baby after a really rough pregnancy. I had to get a nephrostomy tube inserted through my back into my kidney to help drain it because it couldn't do so on its own. This was back in March. Throughout my pregnancy, I faced multiple complications: preeclampsia, cholestasis, and gestational diabetes. Finally, in August, I welcomed my son. It took 2 months to schedule surgery to remove the nephrostomy tube and address other kidney issues. I also have a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old, so life was pretty hectic. In the weeks leading up to my surgery, I was in so much pain from my kidney issues. I couldn't take any medication before the procedure, which made everything even harder. I reached out to my family multiple times, asking for just a little help and support. Taking care of 3 kids, including an infant, while healing from a C-section and dealing with all these health issues was exhausting. But my family insisted I didn't need help and told me to figure it out on my own. So I did. The Thursday before my surgery, a friend came over to help with the kids while I cleaned the entire apartment. Friday was surgery day. My mom came to stay with the kids while I was in surgery and took my 3-year-old home afterward. My 5-year-old went to his bio dad's, leaving just me, my husband, and the infant. That weekend, while I was recovering, my husband received a call that his dad was in the hospital and possibly dying. There were concerning signs on the imaging of his spine that could indicate cancer or infection, both of which were serious. So, on Saturday evening, the day after my surgery, my husband took the baby, picked up our 3-year-old, and went to the hospital to see his dad. I stayed home because I felt lightheaded and dizzy from the surgery, so I went to sleep. When my husband got home, he asked if I could take care of the baby, but I could barely open my eyes. He took over, but he couldn't do the dishes that day. No big deal, we could handle it the next day. Sunday morning, my husband had to go to work, leaving me alone with the 3-year-old and the infant. When I tried to stand up, I fainted. I managed to change the baby's diaper, but felt so dizzy that I set the diaper on the floor by the bassinet. I put on Mickey Mouse for my 3-year-old and tried to lay down. I fainted again and then started hallucinating, losing track of what was real. I called my husband, telling him something was very wrong and that I needed to go to the hospital. He hesitated, not wanting to leave work early, so I called my dad instead. When my dad and stepmom arrived, my dad started yelling at me about the dishes, the overflowing garbage, and the mess on the floor from my toddler. I asked him to stop yelling and just help me get to the hospital. Instead, my stepmom looked at my medications and told me it was just a side effect. She gave me Tylenol and suggested I sleep it off. They took the kids for a drive, and when they returned, they yelled at my husband about the trash, the dishes, and letting the toddler eat in the living room. I had called for help at 10:30 a.m., and by now it was 6 p.m. They finally took my temperature, which was 102 and rising. I was completely out of it at this point. My husband rushed me to the hospital, where they immediately informed me that my kidney had become infected during surgery, and I was septic. The nurses were genuinely worried for me. My temperature had spiked to 104, and I was so disoriented that I didn't even know what was happening anymore. I was admitted for sepsis. While I was in the hospital, my dad exaggerated the situation to others, claiming my apartment was a disaster and that my children weren't being cared for. Someone called CPS, expressing concerns about my kids living in a pigsty while I was literally fighting for my life in the hospital, hooked up to oxygen and IVs. The morning after I got home from the hospital, CPS was knocking on my door. I let the caseworker in and explained everything. How I had a medical emergency and called my dad for help only to receive criticism instead. She was satisfied with what she saw and said there would be no case. It's just so frustrating. I reached out for help in a time of need, and instead of support, I got criticism. My dad's actions led to this unnecessary situation, and not once did he consider my side of the story, or the fact that I was hospitalized and needed assistance.